Hi there, and welcome to Theology Thursday. First of all, I want to say Happy Thanksgiving. I hope you have a wonderful day with your family and eating more food than you should. And hopefully that's all good. And if you know me, then you know that my pumpkin pie is completely buried in whipped cream today, because that's the only way to eat anything, is to bury it in whipped cream. You know, a lot of people travel for Thanksgiving, but not just travel on a holiday. We travel all the time. I live 22 miles from the church, and so I travel back and forth. I travel to Tucson to see family. I travel to Marana to see family. I travel to Queen Creek. I travel to the seminary in North Phoenix where I teach 1 or 2 days a week. I travel to the store. We travel for vacation. We spend a lot of time in one of our vehicles, mine or my wife's, and we spend a good deal of time on my motorcycle, me in particular. Now, when I'm traveling in the car or on the motorcycle, sometimes I listen to the radio, but most of the time I stream music from my phone. I have microphones in my motorcycle helmet or earbuds that I can wear. In the car, I can obviously stream, as many of you can. You can connect your phone to your car and you can stream music. And so when we travel, we like music going in the background. I know sometimes I'll listen to podcasts or a few other things, but most of the time I'm listening to music as I travel. Just, nice to have that going. Well, in Bible times, there were no cars. There were no phones. There was no streaming. It wasn't like that. So when you would travel, you would usually travel in groups for safety. And as you would travel, you would obviously want to do something to entertain yourself because people are traveling mostly by foot. Sometimes, especially if you had maybe a wife who was pregnant, you would have her on a donkey so that she could ride. But most of the time, people walked everywhere that they went. And so as this group is walking together, traveling, one of the things they would do is they would sing songs together. I can remember when my children were young and there was no internet, really. There were no streaming services like that, no cell phones. A lot of times we'd be in places where there weren't very many radio stations, if any, and so a lot of times we would sing songs together when we would travel. And I would drive, and my wife, Jerry, would sing the songs with the kids, and so we taught them lots of songs, traveling songs. And actually in the Bible, we find a set of psalms that are traveling songs. They're called the Songs of Ascent, and they start in Psalm 120. I'm not going to read all of them because, that would just take too long. So Psalm 120 through 134, we have 15 of them. And there are two theories as to where these songs of ascent came from. Some believe that there were 15 steps that led up into the temple. They would sing a song with each step, but that doesn't seem to really fit what they say and what we find. Probably ideas they were traveling songs. So the word ascent, each of these has a title called a Song of Ascent. It means to go up, to ascend. And Jerusalem sits on top of a hill. So you would go up to Jerusalem, whether you were coming from north, south, east, or west. You would always go up to Jerusalem because it was, uphill. And so these were songs that pilgrims would sing as they would go to Jerusalem, up to Jerusalem, for one of the various festivals that they would have. And so what we find is something very fascinating, and I just want to consider 2 or 3 things that we read in here. The first one starts off, interestingly enough, we would start off with, I'm distressed. In my distress, I called to the Lord, He answered me. Deliver me from lying lips and a deceitful tongue. I'll just read the whole thing. He said, what will be given to you, and what more shall be done to you, you deceitful tongue? A warrior's sharp arrows with glowing coals of the broom tree. Woe to me that I sojourn in Meshech, that I dwell among the tents of Kedar. Too long have I had my dwelling among those who hate peace. I am for peace, but when I speak, they are for war. So in here, he makes a reference to Meshech. They're over in Arabia. It's called places. So here's the idea. I'm a long way from Jerusalem. So the Songs of Ascent start in Meshech, in the tents of Kedar. He says, man, I'm a long way from home, from Jerusalem, and I'm in distress. I want to be where there's peace. And as you move through the Songs of Ascent, there is a they get closer. They would sing these songs as they got closer, like in order, as they would get closer and closer, and more about like celebrating, being there with other people. So you get near the end of Psalm 133, and here's what you read. Behold, how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell in unity. We're all in Jerusalem now. It's like the precious oil on the head, running down on the beard of Aaron, running down on the collar of his robes, like the dew of Hermon, which falls on the mountains of Zion. For there the Lord has commanded the blessing, life evermore. And so there's this great description. And then you get to the last one, Psalm 135, in verse 2, he talks about standing in the house of the Lord, in the courts of the house of our God, and celebrating who God is. And so the songs of ascent are, we're moving towards Jerusalem. We're going up to Jerusalem for this festival. So the idea is that they are preparing themselves as they're traveling for this time of worship. I think sometimes maybe worship isn't all that we would like for it to be, or all that we are hoping it would be. And there are a variety of reasons for that. Sometimes it's probably my fault as the pastor, and maybe the music just didn't click that Sunday or whatever it was. But one of the reasons may be that you didn't show up prepared for worship. Maybe you need to get ready as you're headed to church. God, get me ready to worship. I want to dwell together in unity with the brethren. Like Psalm 133. How great it is to be in the house of the Lord, to be in a city that's like everybody squeezed in because we're all so excited to be there. And so the songs of ascent are this excitement and anticipation and building towards this festival in Jerusalem. But there's something else that we notice. In Psalm 120, he talks about the danger. About, I'm around those who have war. And then in the next psalm, he says, I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? Now, when we travel, I'm not too concerned about being attacked as I travel. I'm careful when we stop to get gas. I kind of keep my eyes up, and when we stop at a rest area or whatever. But traveling is not really that dangerous outside of the people who are texting and when they're supposed to be driving. But in the ancient world, traveling was very dangerous. You walked by foot everywhere you went. There were no motels for the most part. You would just, wherever there was a good spot on the side of the road, you would set up camp for the night and you would sleep there. Sometimes you'd just sleep out on the ground. That's what they would do when they would travel. And so one of the things that you would do for safety is that you would travel in a group. Even in Jesus' time, there was such a large group that it took them a couple days to realize that Jesus wasn't with them. And so you travel in this group for safety. There's safety in numbers. And a half a dozen gang members, robbers, aren't going to attack a group of 30 or 40 people. And so they would travel in these groups. And here he's saying, where's my help? Look at the hills. There are all these places that robbers could hide and assault us on our way to Jerusalem. Whereas my help comes from the Lord, made heaven and earth. He won't let your foot be moved. He keeps you. He who keeps you will not slumber. He who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. So even when you're asleep at night, God's awake and on the job. So to speak, ends, the Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time forth forevermore. I used to read this psalm a lot to my kids when they were young. We'd be traveling somewhere, and we'd get in the van, and I would read this psalm as we were going to take a trip back to see grandparents or go on vacation or whatever it was. And so there's this description of safety, and there are several other things that he says in here. I lift up my eyes to you, Psalm 123. Those who trust in the Lord are like Mount Zion, cannot be moved. Again, it's this psalm. Many of these have kind of this protection strain running through them, that God protects us. And so that was something that they needed. So they're traveling in a group. They're encouraging and worshiping together as they sing these songs. They're anticipating and building the anticipation, the excitement as they move to Jerusalem, where they're going to worship together with people from all over Israel and by New Testament times all over the world as they would come together, much like we find at the day of Pentecost when there are people from all over the world who have come to worship together. And they're praying that God would keep them safe and protect them. And so these psalms are just very encouraging that God watches over us and takes care of us, and that we love to worship Him. And we love to get together with fellow believers and to worship Him. This is my favorite section of the Bible. Many days I'll just sit down and read Psalms 120 through 134. It's just a few pages in your Bible. Mine's only about 6 pages in the Bible, so you can read through those 15 Psalms pretty quickly and easily. And they just bring me encouragement to know that the one who keeps me does not slumber or sleep. That even when I'm asleep, God is watching over me and taking care of me. When I look to a dangerous place, when I think I don't know what the future might hold, I trust in God. When I look to the hills, where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not allow my foot to stumble. That he who guards and keeps me, the sun will not smite me by day, nor the moon by night. I just love that psalm, and how God watches over us and protects us and cares for us. So today, as you're giving thanks to God on Thanksgiving, be thankful that we have a God who watches over us, who takes care of us, and who will see us safely to our final home, which is in heaven. And oh yeah, we definitely anticipate the worship service that's going to come then. So I would encourage you sometime in the next few days, just read the Songs of Ascent, Psalms 120 through 134. It'll only take you about 10 or 15 minutes, and find encouragement from God's Word in that, and think about these travelers singing these songs as they make their way up to Jerusalem for a festival. So God bless you, and I do, again, hope that you have a great Thanksgiving day.